think that this is the challenge, is just telling the truth in a way that people can understand and can process. And, people in the end are responsible for the quality of their own life to that extent, but we can do a lot to help. And I think what's been so amazing to me with this program is how you've been able to reach out to the community. It's not about having all the money in the world. It's not about, fancy titles. It's about how do you relate handshake to handshake? How do you relate to, and I think you said it so well tonight when you said, no man touches any other man more intimately and allows that than your barber and even the hairstylist. And I think that is such an important thing. But what I learned more than anything, and I got to tell you, the night that I watched Dynamite talk about all of this with his clients, and I got to tell you, that was an education for me. I like to think I've had some education. Well, I got an education that night, and it was beautiful. It was wonderful, and it made a difference. And so I think that one of the things you've taught us here is what we often don't teach, and that is you can have all the recommendations, all the policies, all the science, all of the things in the world, but if you can't get that needle that last inch, what have you accomplished if you can't turn a vaccine into a vaccination? And that's what you all are so good at.
Yes, it's very important to sort of think about the spaces that Black men have and have had. But it seemed to be that we were missing a big picture on this space. And frankly, there had been no historical work, surprisingly, done on Black barbershops. And so I thought there was certainly an important story to tell. And so the story that I do tell goes from 1830 to approximately the 1970s. And essentially, it looks at the evolution of the barbering profession and also the barber shop, particularly Black men's entry into those two spaces. Outlining, I'll be sort of brief here. I'm an academic, so I like to talk.
Academics and preachers, they're very closely related. I'm telling you that. Go ahead.
That's right. So essentially, I thought what was missing was barbers were ironically missing from our conversations on barbershops.
Right.
We talked about the barbershops as spaces, but we didn't talk a lot about the barbers, right? Which I'll say in a second connects with, I think, the work that this project has been doing. And so the book is essentially sort of traces the ways in which Black-owned barbershops in the 19th century were primarily sort of commercial spaces owned by Black men, but patronized by wealthy white businessmen and politicians. Between the 1880s and 1920s, 1930s, a number of things happened that sort of pushed Black barbershops from downtown business districts to particularly Black neighborhoods. One, there was the emergence of the Barbers Union, primarily spearheaded by German immigrant barbers who didn't mind being barbers. Native white men didn't want to be barbers because they associated barbering with servile manual labor, effeminate labor. So you talked about touching a man's face. Well, right. White men didn't want to be barbers because they thought that if I touch a man's face, then I might be seen as an effeminate worker, right? Which was certainly hogwash for sure. But also during this, and so they pushed for licensing laws. The licensing laws that we see now came about beginning in the 1890s, 1900s, 1910s, et cetera. At the same time, there were a new generation of barbers who were born after the Civil War, came of age in the 1890s, right when Jim Crow was on the rise. And they opened barbershops targeting Black patrons and Black communities. And so I look at that shift, and then so at the point, right, that Black men are opening barbershops in Black communities. Certainly there's segregated communities, but I like to talk about the Black communities as more than segregated communities, right? There's a lot more happening than the segregation. But there's a larger sort of a willing congregation in these spaces. So they weren't in barbershops, because they couldn't go to white barbershops, they didn't want to.
Just going back to briefly what you were saying about our friend, we just lost a good friend. He was on the Hell No Wall. He contracted COVID the week before we did our second vaccine clinic at the barbershop. He contracted it on a Monday. He was hospitalized Thursday, and he died Saturday in a short week. And he had no underlying conditions. Had 9 kids, 3 grandkids, in the prime of his life, enjoying the fruits of his labor, and was just stubborn about the shot. Took a position to say no, and he met his demise. It was still kind of tough to talk about, but it's just the reality of how serious the situation is, and it just makes me push the pedal to the metal harder to fight the Hell No wall. So people who were saying, no, I'm not getting vaccinated now they're saying I'm, one of my other customers I talked to, his brother had contracted it. He was about to die. He pulled through. So now him and his brother, they're talking about getting vaccinated. So I don't like saying, you need to do this. I keep saying, brother is here. We have the information. Go on our website, look up the research, answer your own questions. I mean, I can't tell you what it is that you're looking for. You know what you're looking for. So do the research, find what you're looking for to get the answers. But I have both shots and I'm boosted. So I'm sitting here cutting your hair and I'm doing fine. No third arm is growing out of me or nothing. So just get on board and keep the world safe.
I would say very briefly, consistency, transparent, intentional, supported, empowered. And I say that because, first of all, we're on Facebook. So that's transparent. The brother spoke on earlier, Chris, about what's being said on the streets. I'm in the streets. I'm in one of the poorest neighborhoods in our city. And born and raised in this community, in this neighborhood. And I hear exactly what...
Tell people where you are.
I'm in Rochester, New York. And we have, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. There's a lot of theories around there. Of course, they're going to use Black doctors. Of course, they're going to use Black people to infiltrate and come in and extract the knowledge from us and find our weaknesses and study us and do it. But I push back on that only for the reason of, this is not something that's happening behind closed doors. This is not something that, in my opinion, the table isn't open for anybody who wants to be a part of it and wants to be a part of the discussion. Oftentimes, as one of the sisters said, they come in, they bring stuff into our barbershop, a pamphlet, they want to research us. Some of them I've even seen the local hospitals where they're paying people to go into these different research projects and things of that nature. But we're never at the table to be a part of the conversation. We're never being intentional to get pushback on what we think and what we feel. I think I heard somebody say, how are you going to research us without us, right? So in the work that I do, in the politics, that's very important to bring people to the community. The people that are being impacted and marginalized have to be the ones who are at the table helping to make the decision and be willing to be intentional about receiving that pushback. I've never seen Dr. T and Mayor O'Neill be not wanting to take that pushback and not wanting to hear the truth on how people feel and always asking us, how do we feel? We're not forcing anybody to get anything. We're not holding people down in chairs and sticking needles in their arms, So we're giving them information, and this is bigger than vaccines. It's bigger when we're talking about healthcare and information. People perish for the lack of knowledge, and I've always seen that the empowerment piece of barbers and beauticians and appearance enhancement professionals, understanding the power that we have internationally, we can control the world.
Well, there's a lot of information that has to be shared. And that's basically what I'm saying is, we're as barbershops, we have to have continuous information. continuous conversation, because we'll be, now I'm not a barber, but I have shops. But I've talked to my barbers, they'll have a point that they're trying to make to anybody, but they have to make it to everybody. Mm-hmm. You have a person that's in the chair for 20 minutes, half an hour. And whether or not they get their point across to that individual, they start the conversation again with the next individual. Mm-hmm. And it goes on. And we were talking about this the last time, where training is one of those things where it has to be repeated. You can't think that your dog is going to get trained because you give him one treat. You can't think a person is going to learn because you told him one time. It's going to take 2 or 3 times. And I think the natural number is 7, where they have to get it 7 times before they say, oh, wait a minute, I know that.